downtown. Do 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 do. Look, we have been calling for Stephanie White to defend Caitlin Clark and step up the way that Lynne Roberts has stepped up right here for Kelsey Plum. Check this out.
And forgive me, I actually meant to start with this. What's your reaction to Kelsey Plum not being named an all-star starter?
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not a. It's become a social media popularity contest, not about who the most impactful players are. She's by far, I mean, the best one-on-one player in the league. She's having an MVP season.
There it is. That's what a coach is supposed to sound like when their star gets disrespected. Lynne Roberts didn't hedge, didn't soften it, didn't play the political game. She called it ridiculous to a reporter's face and stood 10 toes down for Kelsey Plum. And that 30-second clip just became the blueprint for what Caitlin Clark isn't getting in Indiana. Because while Lynne Roberts is out here going to war for her guard, Stephanie White has spent an entire season doing the exact opposite. And that gap, that's not just bad coaching optics. That might be the reason Caitlin Clark ends up in Los Angeles by next season.
What did the LA Sparks do? They have signed Kate Martin to a full-on standard contract. No more developmental stuff, no more of that. Kate Money Martin is fully on the squad. Squad. She's fully there. Is this a seed being planted in the ground for Caitlin Clark to eventually join the?
Kate Martin just got signed to a full standard contract with the LA Sparks. Not a developmental deal anymore, not a maybe. She's locked in for the season. And if you think that's just a roster move, you're not paying attention. Kate Martin and Caitlin Clark are best friends. They came up together at Iowa. They're inseparable off the court. The Sparks already have Cameron Brink, who's also close with Caitlin. Sophie Cunningham's a free agent at the end of this season, and she's in that same circle. Lynne Roberts isn't just building a team, she's building a friend group. She's planting seeds, and those seeds have one target.
The podium. And I think at the end of the day, I think most of us Caitlin Clark fans understand, listen, the Indiana Fever have built their team to play without Caitlin Clark. It's as simple as that. That's why they're able to look like a formidable team even when she doesn't play, because they built the roster to play without her more than they have leaned into her and built a team to play around her. They've spent 2 off seasons building a team to play without Caitlin Clark. It's clear as day. It's very simple. And I think the writing is pretty much already on the wall. At the end of the season, Kelsey Mitchell contract is up. Caitlin Clark is up for the Epic.
Because here's what most people still don't want to say out loud. The Indiana Fever built their roster to play without Caitlin Clark. Not around her, without her. They had 2 off seasons to reshape that team, to bring in pieces that fit her game, to construct an offense that maximizes what she does better than anyone in the league. And they didn't do it. They brought in players who play the same positions, who need the same touches, who operate in the same spaces. And when Caitlin sits, the Fever still look functional. That's not a compliment. That means the system was never designed for her to be the system.
Direction. They're either going to choose Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White, or they are going to choose Caitlin Clark. And I include Stephanie White in that because Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark, philosophically, they just don't see basketball from the same lens. It's that simple. I don't believe that they hate each other off the floor. I just don't think that on the floor, it's a good mix. I think they just see the game through 2 different lenses. And we have been yearning and calling for Stephanie White to actually stand up for, represent, and be front and center for Caitlin Clark. And she's refused to do it at every turn outside of a 30-second clip.
Kelsey Mitchell's contract is up at the end of this season. Caitlin's extension window opens, and the Fever are going to have to make a choice. You can't build around both of them, because they've already proven they're not doing that. So it's either Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White's philosophy, or it's Caitlin Clark and a complete reset. And if you've watched how this season has gone, if you've seen the way Stephanie White has handled Caitlin in the media, the way she's refused to defend her, the way she backtracked after the Alyssa Thomas situation and made the aggressor the victim, you already know which way that decision is leaning. And it's not toward Caitlin.
And I hope our league can get to the point where it's not just popularity in terms of social media, and it's actually about what these guys are doing on the court.
And now we saw this didn't even come down to the fans. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will say I appreciate how Lynne Roberts stepped up for Kelsey Plum and stood 10 toes down. I think it's BS. Kelsey Plum should be a starter. She believes she's the best one-on-one player in the league. Kelsey Plum second in the league in scoring. She was absolutely tearing it up this season. Make no mistake about it, Plum Dog was lighting it up this season. I love how Coach stood on business for her.
Lynne Roberts didn't just defend Kelsey Plum in that press conference. She made it personal. She said Kelsey's the best one-on-one player in the league. She called the all-star snub ridiculous. She blamed social media and popularity contests. And whether you agree with all of that or not, the message was clear. This coach will go to war for her players. She'll take the heat. She'll call out the league if she has to. That's the kind of loyalty that players remember. That's the kind of environment that makes a star want to stay. Or in Caitlin's case, want to come. Because Caitlin's been dealing with worse treatment than Kelsey Plum, and her coach has been silent.
Leaders, once again, ranking her the 12th best guard. Caitlin Clark, the 11th best guard, and we already saw Kelsey Plum come out and talk about how she was treated basically because she was white and popular when she walked into the league, and that is some of the same things, but to a whole nother level that Caitlin Clark is dealing with in this league. But Lynne Roberts, let it be known, man, Kelsey Plum should be a starter in this all-star game. Make no mistake about that. And this is how we have wanted to see our coach step up and stand up for Caitlin Clark, and she's refused to do it.
Well, I believe
Kelsey Plum is second in the league in scoring. She's averaging over 24 points and 6 assists as a 5'8" guard, shooting above 50% from the field. Those are elite numbers, and she still didn't make the all-star starting lineup. The fan vote got rigged for Paige Buchers, who jumped 400,000 votes in 3 days, which is statistically impossible without interference. Then the players and media voted, and Kelsey still got left out, ranked 12th among guards. One spot behind Caitlin Clark, who was ranked 11th, and both of them got disrespected for the same reason. They're white, they're popular, and the old guard of the league resents it.
I mean, what else does a person have to do if they're averaging 24 points, 6 assists, a 5'8" guard shooting above 50% from the field? Like, what else can you do?
Other than be super active on social media, nothing. Like that seems to be what the parameters are. So, but KP's about winning. She's about being great, being excellent. She'll take it in stride.
What are you going to, if you haven't been able to talk to her about it yet, when you do, what are you going to say to her about it? Because, I mean, she's having a season that is worthy of being an all-star starter. Well, yeah. MVP, but an all-star starter just for the base level.
I haven't talked to her yet about it. I'll see how that conversation goes.
Lynne Roberts called it what it is. A popularity contest that's not about impact on the court. And she's right, but not in the way she thinks. The popularity contest isn't about social media followers. It's about who the players and the establishment want to protect. They didn't want Caitlin as captain, so they manufactured a vote surge for Paige. They didn't want Kelsey as a starter, so they buried her in the rankings. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as intended. It's just not working for the players who are actually moving the needle. And Kelsey Plum has already said publicly that she faced some of the same bias Caitlin's facing now, just because she was white and popular when she entered the league. The difference is, Kelsey had a coach who fought for her. Caitlin doesn't.
Just as Caitlin Clark got did dirty, we all know they rigged the fan voting for Paige Buchers. Paige Buchers jumped 400,000 votes in like 3 days. We all know it was rigged. It was scammy. They just didn't want Caitlin Clark to be the captain. But the Los Angeles Sparks, I think Caitlin Clark in LA would be a beautiful thing.
The Sparks aren't hiding what they're doing. They posted about Kate Martin's signing on social media with a clear message. She's staying in LA for the entire season. That's a signal to Kate, to the fans, and to Caitlin. This is a place where your people are. This is a place where loyalty matters. This is a place where the coach will actually stand up for you when the league tries to bury you. And in a league where most stars are getting recruited through back channels and whisper campaigns, the Sparks are doing it in broad daylight.
Include Stephanie White in that because Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark, philosophically, they just don't see basketball from the same lens. It's that simple. I don't believe that they hate each other off the floor. I just don't think that on the floor, it's a good mix. I think they just see the game through two different lenses.
Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark don't see basketball through the same lens. That's not speculation. You can watch the games. Caitlin's a high-pace, high-volume shooter who thrives in transition and needs the ball in her hands to create. Stephanie White's system is methodical, half-court heavy, and built around ball movement and defensive rotations. Those aren't compatible philosophies. One of them has to bend, and it's been Caitlyn bending all season. And when the media asks Stephanie about it, when they ask her to defend Caitlyn against the cheap shots and the flagrant fouls and the disrespect, she gives 30-second sound bites and then walks it back the next day. That's not coaching, that's self-preservation.
You see the things that LA Sparks doing. You got Cameron Brink, who's friends with Caitlin Clark. You got Kate Money Martin, who's best friends with Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham will be a free agent at the end of this season. Hey, Sophie Lexi can make her way.
We've been calling for Stephanie White to step up the way Lynne Roberts just did. To make it clear that Caitlin Clark is untouchable, that if you come after her, you're coming after the whole organization, and she's refused every single time. The Alyssa Thomas situation was the perfect moment. Alyssa undercut Caitlyn on a fast break, a play that could have ended her season, and Stephanie gave one lukewarm quote and then spent the next week making Alyssa the victim. She talked about how hard it is for Alyssa, how much pressure she's under, how we all need to have grace. Grace for the player who just tried to injure your franchise cornerstone. That's when you know the priorities are backwards.
Kelsey Plum, check this out.
And forgive me, I actually meant to start with this. What's your reaction to Kelsey Plum not being named an all-star starter?
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not a. It's become a social media popularity contest.
Cameron Brink is friends with Caitlin Clark. Kate Martin is best friends with Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham will be a free agent at the end of this season, and she's in that same Iowa-adjacent circle. The Sparks are building a roster that looks less like a basketball team and more like a reunion tour. And that's smart, because when you're trying to recruit the biggest star in women's basketball, you don't pitch her on playing time or money. You pitch her on the people she actually wants to be around. You pitch her on a coach who will protect her. You pitch her on a city that will treat her like the icon she already is. And Los Angeles checks every one of those boxes.
To see how this thing plays out in Indy, I think how the season finishes up is going to play a major part. And I think regardless of how things go, this is the very last season you'll see Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark as teammates. This is it. And I think the LA Sparks are planting seeds in the ground and prepping for a move to bring Caitlin Clark to Los Angeles.
This is the last season you're going to see Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark as teammates. That's not a hot take. That's just reading the room. The Fever are going to have to choose, and everything about how this season has played out tells you they're not choosing Caitlin. They're choosing continuity. They're choosing Stephanie White's system. They're choosing to keep the roster they already built instead of blowing it up to fit the generational talent they lucked into. And when that happens, when Caitlin's extension talks stall out, or when the Fever make it clear they're prioritizing Kelsey's re-signing, the Sparks are going to be right there with an offer that makes Indiana's look like an insult.
Toes down. I think it's BS. Kelsey Plum should be a starter. She believes she's the best one-on-one player in the league. Kelsey Plum second in the league in scoring. She was absolutely tearing it up this season. Make no mistake about it. Plum Dog was lighting it up this season. I love how Coach stood on business for her. Now the Sparks don't have the best record. Kelsey Plum is dealing with an injury now, but you can't argue. But you can't say anything about her skill set, her.
Lynne Roberts said she hopes the league can get to a point where all-star voting isn't just about popularity on social media, where it's actually about what players are doing on the court. And that sounds reasonable until you realize the players themselves are the ones doing the gatekeeping. The fan vote got rigged, sure, but the player and media vote is where Kelsey and Caitlin really got buried. The players ranked Kelsey as the 12th best guard and Caitlin as the 11th. Not the fans, the players. The same players who've spent all season talking about how the league was fine before the rookies showed up. How the attention is unfair, how they built this league and deserve respect. That's not about merit, that's about protecting a hierarchy that's already crumbling.
Like that seems to be what the parameters are. So, but KP's about winning, she's about being great, being excellent. She'll take it in stride.
What are you going to, if you haven't been able to...
And Lynne Roberts didn't back down. She said Kelsey's having an MVP season, not an all-star season, an MVP season. That's the level of confidence a coach should have in their star. That's the kind of public backing that makes a player run through a wall for you. And it's exactly what Caitlin hasn't gotten from Stephanie White. Not once, not even close. The contrast couldn't be sharper, and players around the league are watching. When Caitlin's extension window opens, she's going to remember who had her back and who left her out to dry. The Sparks aren't a playoff team this year. Their record is rough, and Kelsey Plum's dealing with an injury that's going to keep her out for a while. But none of that matters for what they're building toward. This isn't about 2025, this is about 2026 and beyond. This is about positioning themselves as the landing spot for the player who's going to define the next decade of women's basketball. And every move they're making, from signing Kate Martin to Lynne Roberts going to war in press conferences, is designed to send one message to Caitlin Clark. We're ready when you are. The Indiana Fever had every advantage. They had the first overall pick. They had a generational talent who wanted to be there. They had 2 full off seasons to build around her, and they wasted it. They brought in players who don't fit. They hired a coach who doesn't believe in her system. They've spent an entire season making Caitlin adjust to them instead of building a team that adjusts to her. And now the sparks are circling, and the Fever have no one to blame but themselves. Caitlin Clark to LA isn't a rumor yet. It's not even a report. But the pieces are moving into place, and the timeline is obvious. Kelsey Mitchell's contract ends after this season. Caitlin's extension talks will start right after that. If the Fever lowball her, if they make it clear she's not the priority, she's gone. And the Sparks will be waiting with Kate Martin, Cameron Brink, a coach who actually fights for her players, and a market that will turn her into the biggest star in sports. Not just women's basketball, sports. So where does this actually go? If the Fever finish this season strong, if they make a deep playoff run, maybe that buys Stephanie White some goodwill. Maybe that makes Caitlin think twice. But if they flame out early, if the same problems keep showing up, if Kelsey Mitchell gets re-signed and Caitlin's extension offer comes in under what she's worth, it's over. The Sparks won't even have to recruit her. She'll call them first. And the wildest part, the league will act shocked. They'll write articles about how the Fever mismanaged a generational talent. They'll blame the front office, the coach, the roster construction. But the truth is simpler. Caitlin Clark needed a coach who would go to war for her the way Lynne Roberts just did for Kelsey Plum. She needed an organization that would build around her instead of asking her to fit into something that was never designed for her. And she didn't get either of those things in Indiana. So she's going to go somewhere that will give them to her. And right now, that somewhere is looking a lot like Los Angeles. Do you think Caitlin Clark ends up in LA, or does Indiana figure it out in time? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want to see how this plays out as the season goes on, hit that subscribe button, because this story is just getting started.